Thanksgiving is supposed to bring family together. But what happens when the traditions that once united everyone suddenly threaten to tear them apart? When Sarah decides to host this year's holiday far from home, old wounds resurface, tensions rise, and everyone is forced to ask, is it more important to keep the tradition or to make room for change? Join Sarah's family as they navigate heartbreak, stubborn pride, and unexpected surprises in a story about Thanksgiving, family, and the price of new beginnings. Friends, let's start today's video. Thanksgiving has always been a big deal in the Johnson family. For as long as Sarah could remember, her parents' home in Denver became a bustling hub each November, hosting her two siblings and their families, her aunt and uncle from Houston, and even a handful of close family friends. This year, however, things were going to be a little different. Sarah, now 33 and recently engaged, wanted to host Thanksgiving at the new house she bought with her fiancé Mark, outside Seattle. She couldn't wait to create new traditions and prove that she was ready to take on the mantle of hosting. Hey everyone, Mark and I would love to host Thanksgiving this year at our place in Seattle. We'll handle all the food and accommodations. Let us know what you think. Almost instantly, the reactions poured in. Her brother Eric, who lived in Chicago, replied with a supportive, "That sounds awesome. Excited to check out your place." Her younger sister Katie, now juggling 3 kids in Dallas, gave a non-committal, "Let me check with Mike," her husband. Their parents, Susan and Rick, were a bit more hesitant. "Wow, that's a big change. Are you sure you're up for all that work, honey?" Sarah beamed with excitement as Mark reassured her, "It'll be great. Nothing we can't handle together." But as the days passed, Sarah noticed a strange tension growing in the family chat. Her mom began sending subtle reminders of traditions they would miss, like her famous cranberry sauce, and asked how Sarah would handle a gravy emergency without Dad. Even her Aunt Linda joked about surviving, quote, Seattle rain and soggy turkey. Even so, Sarah held her ground and started planning. By early September, asked everyone about food allergies and favorite dishes in a detailed email. Mark started looking for a big enough table to seat 14. But then, an unexpected wrinkle. Katie called in tears. Between her kids' school schedules and her husband's work, flying to Seattle would not only be expensive, but nearly impossible. "If Thanksgiving isn't at Mom and Dad's, we're not coming," she blurted out. Sarah tried to hide her disappointment, but her mind spun with questions. Was it selfish to move the holiday? Was she damaging family unity by wanting to change the tradition? Sarah relayed the conversation to Mark, and together they considered solutions, offering to help with airfare, suggesting a smaller Friendsgiving at their place while keeping the main event in Denver, maybe even a virtual gathering. Then Uncle Ray chimed in, frustrated that flying from Houston to Seattle would be an ordeal, especially during the busy holiday period. Sarah's parents took this as a sign and began lobbying for the family to stick with Denver so everyone can come. Sarah tried to hold on to her vision, but she felt guilt and pressure mounting on all sides. A few days later, the family group chat became the front lines of a battle over logistics and expectations. Her mom listed all the things that could go wrong in Seattle. What about the snow? What if the oven isn't big enough? Aunt Linda joined in, reminding everyone about the year Sarah accidentally burned a pumpkin pie. Old family jokes became weapons. Remember the last time someone new hosted Thanksgiving? When she found herself awake at 2 a.m., scrolling through recipe blogs and stress-buying dinnerware, Sarah realized how out of control things had gotten. What started as her attempt to contribute and grow into her adult role in the family quickly devolved into passive-aggressive comments, subtle power plays, and an overwhelming sense of not good enough. It seemed that the real Thanksgiving tradition wasn't about turkey or cranberry sauce, but about control, and those who didn't want to let it go. Mark tried to lighten the mood. "Forget the Johnsons, babe. We'll host our own dinner for any friends who can make it, or just order Chinese and watch movies." But Sarah wasn't ready to give up. She wanted to prove, maybe to herself as much as her family, that she could host the kind of gathering that united everyone, even if it took a little negotiation to get there. What Sarah didn't realize was that, as the calendar crept closer to November, these family tensions would only be magnified. And as she soon discovered, the battle lines were drawn not just over location, but over the very meaning of family traditions. Sarah didn't expect planning Thanksgiving would unleash such a storm, but as September faded into October, the situation grew more complicated. Every attempt to smooth things over seemed to spark a fresh disagreement, or revive old wounds she'd never realized ran so deep. It started with a family Zoom call Sarah scheduled to, quote, hear everyone out. Mark, ever the optimist, thought bringing people together virtually would let them air concerns and rally around a solution. Instead, the call began with small talk about football, kids, and weather, but soon became a series of passive-aggressive interruptions. Seattle will be so cold and rainy, Aunt Linda complained. Remember Dallas a few years ago? At least we got sun there. Rick, Sarah's dad, tried to stay neutral. Honey, it's not about you. It's about what works for all of us. Katie jumped in. Well, for me and Mike, flying that far with 3 kids is basically impossible. We'd have to pull them from school. Mike can't get days off, and flights are ridiculous. Eric, her supportive older brother, finally lost his cool. "So what? We just do whatever is closest to mom and dad forever? Nobody else gets to host until they're dead?" A tense silence settled until her mother nervously laughed, saying, "Let's not talk about anyone dying, please." Sarah tried to mediate, explaining how hosting was important to her new life and wanting to start fresh traditions. But every olive branch was met with a new problem. Her oven wouldn't handle a meal that size. Uncle Ray couldn't afford the airfare. Tradition shouldn't be broken, and so on. When the call ended, Mark hugged Sarah, joking, "Thanksgiving is more stressful than our actual wedding planning." Sarah laughed weakly, but she felt isolated and overwhelmed. She didn't want to be the catalyst for their first Thanksgiving apart, or the bad guy who forced everyone's hand. As weeks slipped by, Thanksgiving chatter dominated the family chat. Old photos were shared of previous celebrations, with sentimental captions about not missing a year. Sarah's mother, Susan, posted a picture of her famous apple pie. Wouldn't taste right anywhere else. Sarah wondered if anyone realized how hurtful these messages could be. Beneath the ritual banter, there was a clear undercurrent. If Thanksgiving moved, some would feel excluded. Mark suggested inviting a few friends and local colleagues instead, but Sarah couldn't let go. She tried to problem solve, offering to pay for her niece and nephew's plane tickets, suggesting her brother could drive from Chicago to Denver instead of flying to Seattle, and even moving the big dinner to the Saturday after Thanksgiving so more could make it. Every option hit a roadblock. Then, one chilly morning in late October, Sarah got a call from her sister. Katie sounded tired, her voice low. "Look, if you move it to your house, Mom will be heartbroken. She's acting like she's fine, but she cried after the Zoom call. She thinks you don't care about family anymore." Sarah's heart twisted. Since childhood, pleasing her mother meant everything. Sarah asked, "What if I come up with a way to include everyone, even if they can't be here?" Katie sighed. "It's not the same. These traditions matter to Mom. To all of us." Then, after a pause, Katie admitted, "I wish it could be different, but if you host, we just can't come." Struggling with guilt and frustration, Sarah discussed everything with Mark. "Why does it have to be all or nothing?" she wondered. "Can't we share Thanksgiving? Do it our own way here? And with family online?" Mark nodded supportively. "Families change, Sarah. Traditions evolve. You're not wrong for wanting to start something new." One night, Sarah wrote a long message to the family chat, explaining her feelings. "I know changing Thanksgiving is a big deal, and I want to honor what we've always done. But hosting here means a lot to me and Mark. We want to be part of the tradition, not end it. How about we try something new this year? We'll do a Thanksgiving Day Zoom so those who can't make it are included, and anyone who wants can come visit us for a special Friendsgiving that weekend. I'll even bake Mom's cranberry sauce recipe and live stream the chaos. This isn't about replacing what we have, but adding to it. Let's make space for everyone, however they can join." Mixed reactions followed. Her dad called to say he was proud of her for trying. Eric texted, "Let's make it work, sis." Aunt Linda protested that Zoom isn't real Thanksgiving, but others chimed in with creative suggestions, doing joint recipes, sharing family stories on video, even organizing a remote sing-along. But Susan, her mom, didn't reply for 2 days. When she finally did, she wrote, "I want us together, but maybe it's time to let you host. I just hope it feels like home." That one message captured the heartbreak and hope at the center of so many family dilemmas. Sarah cried, tears of relief, sadness, and gratitude. She realized everyone was mourning something. The ease of old routines, the closeness that came from gathering under one roof, and the comfort of knowing how every holiday would unfold. Change felt risky. Slowly, a compromise took shape. Sarah's parents and Eric agreed to fly to Seattle. Her sister Katie and Uncle Ray would join virtually, sending video greetings and sharing recipes by email. Tradition would bend, but not break. It wasn't what Sarah envisioned, but it wasn't a disaster either. With 2 ovens running, Mark prepping sides, and her mom guiding her on video chat, Sarah found herself at the heart of a new family tradition, one built on flexibility, empathy, and the courage to let go. As Thanksgiving approached, final plans crystallized, and while there was lingering sadness, there was also a spark of excitement, or at least curiosity, about how this experiment would unfold. Unknown to Sarah, the most unexpected drama still awaited, but for now, there was fragile peace. Thanksgiving morning dawned gray and drizzling in Seattle, the sky low and thick with the promise of more rain. As Sarah woke, a mixture of nerves and hope bubbled inside her. Today would reveal whether her efforts to blend old family warmth with new beginnings would succeed, or if she'd simply made everyone more homesick for the comforts of Denver. Mark was already up, wrestling with a finicky turkey in the oven, his kiss-the-cook apron streaked with cranberry sauce. The scent of roasting vegetables, cinnamon, and pumpkin coffee wafted through the house, trying to conjure that elusive coziness Sarah remembered from countless Johnson Thanksgivings. Sarah's parents landed late the night before, tired but cheerful. Her dad, Rick, had barely let his suitcase drop before seeking out her backyard to check if the grill was up to his standards. Her mother, Susan, clung a little tightly when she hugged Sarah hello, a mixture of pride and sorrow in her eyes. Eric flew in from Chicago, lugging a bag of mysterious ingredients and a new board game, determined to lighten the mood if the conversation grew heavy. As the morning unfolded, Sarah dove into preparation with a determination she hadn't felt since defending her thesis in grad school. Mark handled stuffing duty and kept spirits high with a classic 90s playlist, but she noticed her mother quietly circling, making helpful suggestions. Add a dash of nutmeg here, bump up the oven temperature there, wistful for control but trying not to overstep. The kitchen, both familiar and foreign, hummed with the energy of people who'd walked these roles their whole lives, now relearning them while awkwardly sidestepping old routines. By noon, the virtual contingent logged onto a big screen Zoom call propped up on the mantel. Katie's family perched on a couch in Dallas, Uncle Ray flanked by his bulldog in Houston, Aunt Linda already sipping white wine. The kids bounced in and out of the camera frame, shrieking and showing off half-eaten chocolate turkeys. Sarah felt both gratitude and yearning. Everyone's laughter seemed to come from another world. The grand meal approached, and with it a swell of tension. Sarah's cranberries had overflowed and left a tart, blackened mess on the stovetop. Mom's signature disaster, Eric teased, while the turkey required frantic last-minute basting from both Susan and Mark. In the midst of these little panics, something softened in Sarah's mother. A realization, maybe, that chaos and laughter belonged to any kitchen, any holiday, in any place where family gathered with the best intentions. The family sat, sprawled across Seattle in person, and across cities through the miracle of Wi-Fi. At the long, mismatched table Sarah and Mark had borrowed from 3 neighbors. Paper turkeys, drawn by Katie's youngest in Texas, decorated each plate in Seattle. Mark poured wine, Susan led the first toast, and Rick gave a graceless, heartfelt speech about the changing of the guard, joking that he was retiring from turkey duty unless needed in an emergency. Sarah took a moment to soak in the scene. Faces glowed from different screens and seats, voices joking and arguing about whether Yankee Candles could ever replace the real pumpkin scent of their Denver home. It wasn't seamless. The video call dropped twice. Aunt Linda's jokes didn't always land, and a few times, silence fell when it became clear that not everyone was truly there. But Sarah saw something else too. Her own home buzzing with life, full of her people, even if some were hundreds of miles away. As the meal wound on, old family stories spilled out. Moments about Grandpa's disastrous oyster stuffing. The year Eric and Sarah tried to deep fry a turkey in Dad's old beer keg, infamous for setting off the neighbor's fire alarm. Laughter came easier as memories intertwined with each new small disaster. A lumpy gravy, a pie with a shattered crust, a toddler's tantrum in Dallas echoing in real time through everyone's speaker. The imperfections themselves became their own inside joke, weaving new tradition into the tapestry of the old. Sarah's favorite moment came unexpectedly, as her mother made a quiet announcement halfway through dessert. She cleared her throat and lifted a fork, pie wobbling at the end. "I wasn't sure about this," Susan admitted. "I liked the way we did things before. Change scared me. I thought, if things were different, maybe we'd start losing each other, and I'm afraid to let go of what kept us close. But I see now that when we trust each other enough to change, we're closer than ever. Sarah, thank you for inviting us into your home, for making new space for the old family. I'm proud of you." Her voice trembled, and so did Sarah's heart. Applause erupted, even virtual clapping from Katie's kids and Uncle Ray, who wiped away tears he pretended weren't there. Sarah, overwhelmed, simply nodded, mouth full of too sweet pie, and squeezed Mark's hand under the crowded table. As evening set in and plates were cleared, the board games began, an old Johnson family contest that marked the true start of holiday mischief. Susan and Rick argued over rules. Mark and Eric formed an uneasy alliance, and Sarah felt, for the first time in weeks, a genuine sense of peace. The stalemate over traditions, the endless planning, the grief for what used to be, all faded under the gentle absurdity of trying to keep a toddler from upending a box of game pieces on screen. Later, as she and Mark tidied up, listening to the gentle hum of leftover laughter floating down the hallway, Sarah realized she'd achieved what she'd wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. She hadn't replaced her childhood holidays, but had honored them by carrying their best parts, connection, care, continuity, into her own new world. The pain of transition began to lessen, replaced by hope that, next year, things might get easier, that compromise could become celebration rather than surrender. As Sarah prepared for bed that night, scrolling through a flood of group texts filled with snapshots, inside jokes, and promises to make it work again, maybe in Denver next year, or Seattle if you'll have us, she smiled. Thanksgiving had changed. She'd changed, but the heart of what mattered remained. The people she loved, the stories they shared, and the willingness to show up even when it was hard. In the quiet dark, Sarah whispered a thank you, not just for surviving the day, but for discovering that there is room, even in old traditions, for new joys to take root.